Okay, let's just dive right in. We're going to talk about a pretty serious threat to our modern world, but the solutions, well, believe it or not, they might already be sitting in your kitchen cabinets and out in the garage. Yeah, we're talking about EMP protection using things you already own. I want you to just picture it for a second. Every single phone, every computer, every screen you can think of, bam, instantly dark. No power, no internet, no way to call anyone. Our entire world, I mean everything, runs on electronics, and that makes us incredibly vulnerable. So, what's the culprit? It's something called an electromagnetic pulse, or an EMP for short. It's this intense, invisible wave of energy that can come from a couple of places: a high altitude nuclear event, or, and this is the one that happens naturally, a massive solar storm, sometimes called a coronal mass ejection from the sun. Either way, the result is pretty much the same. It can overload and just fry our sensitive electronics in an instant. And the scale of this threat, it's absolutely staggering. A NASA study actually crunched the numbers. They figured a severe solar storm, something like the big one that hit back in 1859, if that happened today, it could cause over $2 trillion in damage. That's not science fiction, folks. That's a real and very expensive possibility. So, here's our game plan. We'll quickly recap the threat. Then we're going to get into the science of an invisible force field that you can actually create. After that, we'll hit the 5 surprising household items that can act as shields, cover the golden rules for building them, and then, the best part, show you how to test your own creations. All right, let's get into the cool part, that invisible force field. The science behind it is actually surprisingly simple, and get this, it's been around for almost 200 years. It all comes down to one simple concept: the Faraday cage. So what is a Faraday cage? Well, it's basically just a shield, an enclosure made from a conductive material. Think aluminum or steel or copper. It gets its name from this brilliant 19th century scientist, Michael Faraday. He's the guy who figured out that electricity stays on the outer surface of a conductor, which means anything you put inside is left completely safe. And here's the perfect way to picture it. Think about lightning striking a car. The car's metal body? That's a Faraday cage. The massive electrical charge flows right around the outside of the car and harmlessly into the ground. Meanwhile, the people inside are perfectly fine. We're going to use that exact same principle. So where can you find these force fields? The good news is you don't need a high-tech lab. You probably have several really effective options in your home right now. Let's get into the top 5. First up, the most accessible shield of all. Good old aluminum foil. I mean, it's cheap, it's in almost every kitchen, and it's an excellent conductor. That makes it a perfect material for a do-it-yourself Faraday cage. But, and this is a big but, you have to do it right. First, you have to wrap your device in something that doesn't conduct electricity, like plastic wrap or even a Ziploc bag. This step is absolutely crucial. Then, you wrap that in a layer of foil, and you have to make sure there are 0 gaps. For the best protection, you'll want to repeat that process, creating at least 3 alternating layers of plastic and foil. And, if this sounds a little out there, well, PCMag points out that the whole tinfoil hat joke is actually rooted in this very science. On a more serious note, this principle is so effective that shoplifters have been known to line bags with foil to block the anti-theft sensors at store exits. It really, really works. Okay, on to our next item. If you want something a bit more durable, any metal container with a tight-fitting lid is a fantastic option. Think of an old cookie tin or a popcorn tin or even one of those military-style ammo cans. They're sturdy, conductive, and just perfect for smaller radios or your backup hard drives. Now, I love this next one because it shows you how creative you can get. What if you need to protect something really small, like a USB drive full of family photos or important documents? A simple stainless steel cocktail shaker will do the trick. Seriously, it's basically a perfect, ready-made, small-scale Faraday cage. So what if you need to protect something bigger, like a laptop? Well, a metal filing cabinet can actually be modified to work. As long as the drawers create a solid metal-on-metal seal when they close, that cabinet can serve as a pretty big protective enclosure for multiple devices. And for the biggest, most robust DIY option you can find, look no further than a galvanized steel garbage can. With a tight-fitting lid, this thing can become a serious storage locker for a whole bunch of your electronics. It's a go-to recommendation in the preparedness community for a good reason. Okay, so we have our 5 items, but just having the container, that's not enough. Building an effective shield means you have to avoid a few common but really critical mistakes.
So, let's cover the builder's golden rules.
Right, listen up, because this part is crucial. You have to follow these 3 rules. First, absolutely no gaps. An EMP wave can find its way through the tiniest little opening. Second, you must insulate. Your device cannot, under any circumstances, touch the outer metal shell. So line your container with cardboard, bubble wrap, plastic, whatever you've got. And third, layer up. When you're using something like foil, more alternating layers of insulation and conductor means way, way better protection.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This isn't some fringe idea from the depths of the internet. This is right from an official Level 1 guideline from the Department of Homeland Security. They explicitly recommend low-cost best practices, including wrapping spare electronics in aluminum foil or putting them in Faraday containers. It's real.
Now, we need to clear up a few common myths. A lot of people think a refrigerator or a microwave oven will work. The problem is they just aren't designed for this. Those rubber seals on the fridge doors, they create massive gaps. And the mesh on a microwave door might not be fine enough to block the specific frequencies of an EMP. Without testing, they are just way too unreliable.
So, you've built your shield. You've followed the rules. But how do you know if it actually works? Well, you don't have to guess. There is a very, very simple test you can do right at home to verify your handiwork.
It's called the radio test. Just take a small, battery-powered radio and tune it to a strong AM or FM station, one you can hear loud and clear. Now, place it inside your container while it's playing, seal the lid completely, and listen. If the music or talking stops and all you hear is silence or maybe some static, congratulations, you've successfully blocked the radio waves, which means your Faraday cage works.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. The technology to protect your devices, as you've seen, is actually simple and accessible to everyone. So the real question isn't how to protect your gear, but what you should protect. A small radio for communication? A thumb drive with all your family photos? An old phone loaded up with maps and survival guides? Now you have the tools. What you decide to save, that's up to you.